Hello Fanatics, I am Cindy and welcome to Diamond Painting Fanatics. I am back with my true crime episodes. Due to popular demand, I have been asked to do some more. So if you enjoy true crime and you enjoy diamond painting, please grab a project, come join me and we will discuss another true crime. Please consider hitting that subscribe button to join me on my true crime journey, and yeah, let's take a look at the project I'm going to be working on today and who we're going to be talking about. What bad person are we going to talk about this week? Stay tuned to find out. Hello Fanatics, welcome to Diamond Painting Fanatics. I am Cindy and it's Thursday, and you know what that means? We're going to talk about another depraved individual. This episode is based on John Cannan. But I'm going to cover two stories in one with this because John David Cannan is a British murderer, serial rapist, serial abductor and suspected serial killer. Skipping forward because we're going to discuss him in detail very soon. He is the only suspect in the murder of, I hope I'm saying this right, I don't know, but he's the only suspect in the murder of Susie Lamplu, who vanished in July 1986 after going to meet a man calling himself Mr. Kipper. But in November 2002, the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, decided that there was not enough evidence to charge him with that. But in a rare move, the Scotland Yard held a press conference in which officers named him as the man they believe murdered Susie. So first of all, I want to talk about Susie Lamplu and her disappearance. I want to cover that first. I went on to the Susie Lamplu Trust website, so I'm just going to read what they have on there. On the last Monday of July 1986, in broad daylight, in the middle of the working day, the unthinkable happened. Susie Lamplu, a 25-year-old, disappeared during the course of her work as an estate agent while showing a client around a house in Fulham. Speaking at the time, the late Diana Lamplu vividly recalled the phone call she received from Susie's manager. He said, quote, "Do you have any idea where your daughter might be, Mrs. Lamplu? We wondered whether she could have called into home for lunch. I don't want to worry you, but Susanna left to show a house to a client just before lunch and she hasn't returned. We just wanted to check anywhere we could." Diana recalled that it was so unlike Susie, who usually stuck to the rules and regulations, that something must have gone wrong. At 12:40 p.m. on the 28th of July, Susie had left her office, Sturgis and Sons, taking her house and car keys and a purse with £15 and credit cards, but leaving her handbag behind. 10 minutes later, she was seen waiting outside an empty property, 37 Sharrods Road, which had only been on the market for 1 week. At 1 p.m, she was joined by a man, presumably the Mr. Kipper she had written in her diary, and minutes later they were seen walking away from the house. At 6:45, her manager reported Susie's disappearance to the police. Diana's reaction was similar to many people facing a crisis. Quote, "My initial reaction of frozen shock gave way to a flood of adrenaline which shot me into overdrive. We must find her physically. All that energy must be directed into action. My husband and I went down to the river where her car had been abandoned. We called, we shouted, we encouraged our dogs to search for her. We must have been disturbing the neighbourhood, but more than that, as the police who were there made clear, we were getting in the way." Susie's company car was discovered by police about a mile from her office in Stevenage Road in Fulham, just after 10 p.m. There were no signs of a struggle, no fingerprints unaccounted for. The driver's door was unlocked, the handbrake off, and her purse was in the glove compartment, but her keys were missing. The following day, the 29th of July, there was an article in the London Evening Standard headed, quote, "Kidnap fears for estate agent's girl." Scotland Yard reported there was grave concern for her safety. Wednesday the 30th of July was her mum's 50th birthday, and the Lamplu's home in southwest London was besigned to journalists. Diana welcomed the media as a way of finding Susie. On the Thursday, Diana and her husband Paul appeared twice on television, on BBC's Breakfast Time and TVAM's Good Morning Britain. Diana articulated her fears. Quote, "I feel she is shut up somewhere, that she's being held against her will. I feel that because she hasn't contacted us. She's a very strong, fit lady, so she should be able to cope with most situations." As the media interest was building up, stacks of letters were being delivered to the Lamplu home. Some were from friends who were praying for them. Quote, "It seems so particularly unjust, a thing to happen to a family which has always shown care and love for others, especially in their distress." Others were from strangers who had met Susie. Quote, "Susie bought my green Renault off me, and she struck my husband and I as a smashing girl." A few days after Susie went missing, Diana showed a journalist the piles of letters. Quote, "I think we've heard from the entire Townswomen Guild. It's something everyone can relate to, and a lot of them said they felt almost as if it happened to them." On the 4th of August, a week after Susie disappeared, Diana confided on BBC TV's London Plus that she was beginning to realise that her daughter might be dead. Quote, "I can face up to the fact that she has died, but I cannot face up to what's happened in between. That's too much." Paul had explained that since Susie suffered from fear of being in a closed space, she had once panicked in a cable car. They knew she would have been terrified to be shut in somewhere. They found it easier to believe she was dead rather than still suffering. Despite a police reconstruction and extensive media coverage during the press silly season, no information was forthcoming on Susie's fate. As Diana wrote 5 years later, quote, "There has not been a single trace of her. nothing, just as though she has been erased by a robber. Susie's body has never been found, but she has been presumed murdered and was legally declared dead in 1993. And that's so tragic. Okay, on to this despicable person. Let's start from the beginning. Born in Sutton Coldfield, Warwickshire, John Cannan was sent by his parents to a private school for boys at age 4. During this time, John later disclosed he had a teacher who always used to eat biscuits at break time and whom he had learned to charm into giving him biscuits as well. When he was aged around 7 or 8, a teacher indecently assaulted John, forcing him to drop his trousers and touch the assaulter while being indecently assaulted himself. John continued to be indecently assaulted by the teacher for months. These events had a lasting effect on John, who felt deeply ashamed by them, and the young boy became afraid of school and developed a stammer from being nervous often in school. At age 9, John's parents took him to the doctor over his anxiety, and he did not return to the school. John later claimed that the abuse he experienced at school left him feeling that he often had to deal with humiliation and shame, which in turn led him to express much anger and resentment. John was also beaten by his father as a child and suffered psychological abuse. In 1968, aged 14, John Cannan indecently assaulted a woman in a phone box and was placed on probation. He married his first wife, June Vale, in May 1978. She would prove to be his one and only steady girlfriend, although he claimed that he was hassled into marrying her. June later gave birth to a child that John did not want. By 1980, John had slipped into alcoholism. John left his wife in 1980 for Sharon Major, whom he assaulted and attempted to kill when she tried to leave him. He strangled her while telling her he was going to kill her. He also brought a gun to the house. Sharon was able to fight off John and was taken to hospital in an ambulance. John told her on the way to the hospital that he had meant to kill her. In March 1981, John met Jean Bradford, who ran a ladies' knitwear shop. After meeting her, he entered her shop and attempted to rob her at knife point. He tied up Jean's mother, with tights and raped her daughter in front of her after threatening to stab her 17-month-old baby. This was soon after he had also robbed a petrol station. He served 5 years of an 8-year sentence for rape after being convicted in June 1981. He was also questioned about the attacks on his wife, Daphne, in December 1980. John served his sentence at HM Prison Bristol before being transferred to London. From the 25th of January 1986, he was on day release from a hostel at Wormwood Scrubs, and so was on day release in the lead up to the disappearance of Susie Lamplu in July of that year. He attempted suicide in September by taking 68 paracetamol tablets. Police say that John's modus operandi, MO, was to pretend to be a West Country businessman. He would ply women with chocolates and flowers and then attack when the women rejected him. In September 1986, he began a relationship with his solicitor. He threatened her and her family. Only 10 weeks after his release from prison, John raped a woman at knife point in Reading, Berkshire. In October 1986, an attack he was linked to by DNA from semen. He's one vile individual. I can't believe he was on probation, then he served 5 out of the 8, and John came up to the woman's car asking for directions, then brandished a knife and raped her. And he also buggered her. What do they mean by buggered? John had been arrested for this offence earlier but denied everything and gave an alibi that he was in Sutton Coldfield at the time of the attack, and the forensic evidence was not strong enough to charge him. An early DNA profile was inconclusive, but the Home Office and ICI both ran the test again in 1988 and demonstrated a match. Police also used evidence from John's Cashpoint card to prove that he had travelled from London to Bristol that day. Reading is on the railway line between these cities. In September 1987, John signed up for a video dating agency, giving the fake name of John Peterson. I'm going to show this to you guys. I think it's worth a look. And then we'll come back and chat.
Tights and a sword. I can see me on some bridge or some galleon, bigger pirate. Yes, I can handle that. Yes, I have a dislike of inflated egos. People who are, they look at me, I'm great type. I don't like that. Right. I can't handle that sort of inner weakness.
Kind of pretension.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I just like just normal, average people.
And what do you look for in a pervert of the opposite sex? Personally, what would attract you to women?
Well, I think apart from the physical side, again, I think somebody who's pleasant, who's natural, who's relaxed, somebody who's calm, just pleasant,
you're not
just something
worried
nice.
That they're career orientated?
No. Well, as somebody who's career orientated myself, I couldn't blame them for that.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Now, do you admire any famous people after present?
Yes, I've admired a few. People like Gandhi, philosophers like Bertrand Russell, present-day people like Prince Charles, who's socially aware. Physically, somebody like Stephanie Beecher.
Who's that?
No, it's actually, she's, I think she's in Dallas, or Crest or something. But no, joking apart. Somebody natural, nice, pleasant, somebody with character, little personality.
Practical?
Practical, yes. Somebody, just somebody normal. Somebody who's easy and relaxed to be with.
Now, what about TV comedy programs? Is there anything that you like in that vein?
I'm a little bit dry as regards humour. Dave Allen,
say Benny Hill.
That's a bit slapstick, I know, but yeah, Benny Hill's okay. Or he used to be. Not so good nowadays, but he used to be. Yeah, that type. Mainly dry humour.
Now, do you have any ambitions in the future, or do you feel that you've achieved your ambitions already?
I've achieved them.
Right.
Basic financially, I've achieved them.
So you're going to cut kilo, right?
No, not at all. I'm just looking now. I'm in a sedimentary period
Yes.
where financially and career-wise I've achieved what I've wanted to achieve.
Yes.
I'm just now looking for what the next thing to achieve.
The owners of the agency felt there was something not quite right about him and did not release his video to be viewed by other daters. During the next month, in October 1987, John tried to abduct 30-year-old Bristol businesswoman Julia Holman from a car park at around 6:50 p.m. at gunpoint. But she fought him off and later identified him as her attacker. The next night, he abducted Shirley Banks. Shirley, who was a newly married 29-year-old textiles factory manager from Clifton, was abducted on the evening of the 8th of October in 1987, sometime after 7:40 p.m, while out on a shopping trip to the Broadmead Centre. Her husband, Richard, then 30, searched for her in bars when she failed to return home, as they had agreed to meet for a drink. When he rang her work the next morning, he was told she had just phoned in sick with an upset stomach 15 minutes earlier. When she again failed to return home, he called the police. Police believed that Shirley was held overnight in John's flat and that he persuaded her to phone in sick to her work after pretending he was going to release her. 150 officers from 5 police forces spent around 140,000 man-hours on the case. The police put out television appeals and searched Bristol docks for Shirley's car. They considered that the telephone call to her work could mean she had left voluntarily, and also considered whether her husband Richard could be a suspect. He was quickly eliminated. The police had first planned to link the attempted abduction of Julia Holman the previous night on a Crime Watch reconstruction in November, before John's further crimes led to his arrest. John Cannan, then living at Foy House, Lee Woods in Bristol, was arrested on the 29th of October in 1987 in Leamington Spa for an assault at knife point on an assistant at the Regent Street dress shop, Ginger. 2 passers-by had chased him and called the police. He evaded them briefly, and they found a knife and a bag with blood on it. The police spotted him and saw his hand was bleeding, then arrested him. They found his black BMW near the shop, which contained rope and an imitation handgun. They also found rope hidden in a toilet cistern in a garage. The police searched his car 3 weeks after Shirley had gone missing, where they found a tax disc for her car inside a briefcase in the glove compartment. Her orange Mini Clubman was found painted blue in the lock-up garage at his block of flats. The police bailed him. Why? The police bailed him from the station in Warwick, where he was being interviewed for the attempted robbery. Okay, I should have kept reading. Attempted robbery, and police from Bristol immediately rearrested him regarding Shirley's disappearance. Okay, I apologise for my outrage. News media immediately linked Shirley Banks' disappearance to that of Susie Lamplu and published that John's prior criminal record. John claimed that he bought the Mini from a man at an auction. The police charged him with assault on the 2nd of November, and he had no alibi for the night of Shirley's disappearance. John had behaved uncooperatively with the police, and the police believed he felt he was maintaining control over them by withholding information. A taxi driver came forward to say that a woman had called a taxi to John's flat at about 2 p.m. on the day after Shirley disappeared, but John told him nobody had called one. At about 2:30 p.m, he borrowed a vacuum cleaner from a neighbour and was seen cleaning his car. John's movements could not be accounted for between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Police brought in Julia Holman, whom he had attempted to abduct, and she immediately identified him in the lineup. Hoping that Shirley was still alive, the police released John's picture to the press. A 69-year-old woman came forward to say that she was in traffic near John's flat on October the 9th in 1987. He saw smoke from a small fire in the woods. She heard a struggle, punching, a woman saying no, no, and the man saying, quote, "I warned you what I would do." There was also a choking sound. She shouted towards the man with, quote, "dark curly hair," who saw her, ran towards her and lunged at her. The police were sceptical but believed that it was possible she had heard and seen something in the woods. Police found a cleaning ticket for a shop in Sutton Coldfield and found that John had dropped off a raincoat with red marks on it late October. He claimed the marks were due to red mud from making love in a park. I don't think this guy knows how to make love, personally. Police found the marks were bloodstains that could have been from the same blood group as Shirley. Yeah, this is the 80s, isn't it? So DNA is not great at this point. The police built up a composite set of Shirley's fingerprints from her parents' house, her home and her work. The left thumbprint matched a document in John's flat. He acknowledged that the document came from his flat before he knew about the thumbprint. He was charged with her kidnap and murder on the 23rd of December in 1987. Shirley's naked, decomposed body was found in a stream by a woman collecting moss. 6 months after her disappearance, on Easter Sunday, the 3rd of April, 1988, in the Quantock Hills, at a site named Dead Woman's Ditch, part of an Iron Age camp. The police found dark red mud at the site of her body was left, gold jewellery and buttons from a dress that she had bought. According to pathologist Bernard Knight, she was killed by being hit repeatedly in the head with a rock. Shirley's thumbprint, preserved by the ice-cold stream, also matched the thumbprint found on the document. In July 1988, John Cannan was charged with. This is what he's been charged with. Raping Sharon Major in December 1980. Attempting to commit buggery. Why did I keep using that word? It's an sodomy. Okay. Attempting to commit, we're going to stick with buggery, it's a nicer word in comparison, on Sharon Major on the same date. Making an indecent assault on Sharon Major on the same date. Causing grievous bodily harm to Sharon Major on the same date. Raping Donna Tucker on the 6th of April 1986. Committing buggery, you can remember what that means, on Tucker on the same date. Indecently assaulting Donna Tucker on the same date. Abducting Donna on the same date with the intention of raping her. Attempting to abduct Julia Holman on the 7th of October 1987 with the intention of raping her. Stealing a car that belonged to Shirley Banks in October 1987. Abducting Shirley Banks on the 8th of October 1987 with the intent of raping her. Murdering Shirley Banks in October 1987. Assaulting Carmel Cleary with the intention to rob on the 29th of October 1987. Detaining Carmel Cleary against her will on the same date with the intention of raping her. Mr. Justice Drake at sentencing in 1989, quote, "You are extremely attractive to some women, but under that there lies a most evil violence and horrible side to your character." The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury reached a guilty verdict on the charges after 10 hours on the 28th of April 1989. He was jailed for life by Mr. Justice Drake at Exeter Crown Court. Mr. Justice Drake praised the investigation led by Detective Chief Inspector Brian Saunders. John Cannan was a person of interest in the disappearance of 25-year-old estate agent Susie Lamplu in July 1986 and the murder of 27-year-old insurance clerk Sandra Court by strangulation in Bournemouth in May 1986, but he has never been charged in either of those cases. The murder of Sandra Court. In November 2001, police interviewed John Cannan at a police station in York over the murder of Sandra during May 1986. Sandra was last seen by a taxi driver who dropped her at Throp in Dorset at her sister's house. Sandra's body was found in a water-filled ditch. A pay and display ticket proves that John was in Bournemouth the day she was killed. Sandra had been killed by strangulation. John had previously attempted to strangle his wife to death in 1980. After the discovery of Sandra's body, a letter was sent to police which appeared to be disguised as someone left-handed writing with their right hand, which was notable as John is left-handed. In April 2008, an anonymous letter was posted to police from Southampton claiming that Sandra's death, quote, was a complete and utter accident. Detective Superintendent Jim Dickey in 2006, quote, Cannan will reoffend. He should never be released. If you look at his profile, I have no doubt he will strike again. He has been released from prison before and committed crimes. He is a danger to the female population, particularly the blonde 20-something professionals like Susie. Even if he wasn't released until he was 60, he would go on to abduct, rape and murder women. Not joking. It's a danger to society, this guy. John was questioned by police regarding the disappearance of Susie in 1989 and 1990. He wrote a letter to the local paper, Sutton News, in August 1991, denying any part in her disappearance. She was declared officially dead in 1994. In December 2000, John Cannan was arrested for Susie's murder and questioned, but he was not charged. In November 2002, detectives said publicly that they believed he had killed her, and confirmed this in 2006 when arguing against any reduction in his tariff. In November 2002, John complained via his solicitors about the police publicly naming him, saying he was, quote, devastated and distressed. He again denied killing Susie. His solicitor complained about a lack of presumption of innocence. I mean, really? Really? And that the prison service had withheld letters John had tried to send to national newspapers regarding the allegations. Well, if it's on paper, I guess it's true. Idiot. In November 2002, Mark Dennis, a senior Treasury counsel, decided that there was insufficient evidence to charge John over Susie's death. Susie's parents considered but decided against bringing a private prosecution and civil action against John. In July 1993, the Independent argued that the judge's sentencing statement that John should remain in jail for the rest of his natural life removed any incentive for him to confess post-conviction. That's true. Yeah. But he's not, you can't let him out. He's like so dangerous. He was released and on that day he attacked someone. In November 2002, the police said that John should have been a suspect much earlier in the investigation. They should have checked for recently released sex offenders, and they should have followed up information given by her parents about a man from Bristol. John was released from his prison hostel 3 days before Susie disappeared. His colleagues said he often went to wine bars in Fulham where Susie worked. Susie was supposed to meet a Mr. Kipper when she disappeared, and John was said to have used the name Kipper in prison. In 2000, a new investigating team, led by Jim Dickey, computerised the card index of the case and found that several estate agents in Fulham had been visited by a Mr. Kipper. John may have had access to a black BMW, and a dark BMW was linked to Susie's kidnap. Susie was last seen getting into a BMW with a man holding champagne, which an ex-girlfriend of John, Daphne Sargent, to say that, quote, "As soon as I heard about Susie, I knew it was John. It had all the hallmarks right down to the champagne." John reassembled a photo fit of a man seen with Susie the day she disappeared. A girlfriend of John said he had, quote, "a strong interest in the case," and police believe Susie may have been in a relationship with John. In August 2010, a criminologist who had corresponded with John said that DNA evidence linked Susie to a Ford Sierra, once used by John, and that it was recovered during 2000. It had the false number plate SLP 386, which might relate to her initials, and a year of disappearance. Oh my God, it actually does. The car was recovered from a second-hand dealership in North London, where it had been parked for years. In April 2001, police said that the number plate SLP 386S had been placed on Shirley's Mini by John, and that 386 might be a grid reference, as the site Shirley's body was found is near Northern Line 386, and Northern Manor Barracks is near 3 degrees, I don't understand this, 3 degrees 8-06. When the police interviewed John about the significance of the number plate on the Mini, he acknowledged that the initials could stand for Susie Lamplu, but said a Bristol businessman from whom he had bought the car for £100 was responsible for the deaths of Susie, Shirley and another woman. Asked if that businessman was him, he replied yes, but then immediately recanted. John allegedly told an astrologer who visited him in jail that, quote, "a Bristol businessman murdered Susie," and that, quote, "I know who killed Shirley, Susie and another girl." John's ex-girlfriend, Gilly Page, told police as early as 1990 that he had said Susie's body was buried at Norton Barracks, although she later retracted. In December 1999, after a letter was sent to Susie's mum, Diana, claiming Susie was buried there, a 5-day search by more than 30 officers in and around the former site of the barracks in December 2000 failed to find her body. In February 2001, the Metropolitan Police searched the barrack site again. In April 2001, the police realised that it was possible the barracks named were actually Norton Manor Royal Marines Barracks in Somerset, 8 miles from where Shirley's body was found. In August 2010, they searched a field 3 miles from the site in Worcestershire after a witness remembered seeing a mound of earth there in 1986 when he was a teenager. The police used ground penetrating radar, and trenches were dug by the side of the road between Pershaw and Drake's Broughton. At the same time, they also searched woodland in the Quantock Hills, where Shirley Banks' body was found. In April 2001, a cellmate of John's said that Susie was buried under a patio of John's mother's house in Sutton Coldfield. In October 2018, police officers returned to the house and dug up the garden. A possible involvement in the murder of Melanie Hall, who disappeared in 1996, was suggested by police in October 2009 following the discovery of her remains. John discussed the, quote, perfect abduction with fellow prisoner Christopher Clark, a rapist who was jailed for life for attacking another woman a month after being interviewed over Melanie Hall's disappearance. Shall we have a look at Melanie Hall? Melanie Hall was described by her parents as a, quote, young, vibrant daughter. She had graduated from the University of Bath in 1995. Melanie's mother, Pat, said graduation had been a, quote, cherished dream of Melanie's for 4 years. Melanie worked as a clerical officer at Bath's Royal United Hospital. Her father, Stephen Hall, had served Bath City Football Club as a chairman. Melanie had arranged to stay with her boyfriend, Philip Carlbrum, on the 8th of June, and her mother dropped her off at his home. On the night of 8th of June 1996, Melanie went to Cadillac's nightclub in Bath with Philip and another couple. Melanie was reported as having an argument with Philip, and he left the club, quote, upset after he allegedly saw her dancing with another man. Melanie was last seen sitting on a stool in the club at around 1:10 a.m. on the 9th of June 1996. She was reported missing on the 11th of June 1996 by her parents after she failed to turn up for work. Philip described his devastation at her appearance on the 17th of June 1996. Avon and Somerset police launched several searches of the River Avon after her disappearance and interviewed thousands of clubbers and taxi drivers. A £10,000 reward was offered for information. The BBC show Crime Watch and Crime Stoppers both made appeals to the public for information, as did Melanie's sister Dominique, but no trace of Melanie was ever found. She was declared legally dead on the 17th of November 2004. On the 5th of October 2009, a motorway worker found a plastic bin bag containing bones while he was clearing a vegetation patch on a slip road at junction 14 of the M5 motorway. The bones in the bag included a skull, pelvis and thigh bone, and further remains were found buried and spread around the field by the side of the motorway. Police confirmed that the remains were human. They showed a piece of jewellery found at the site to Mr. and Mrs. Hall, who confirmed that they had belonged to their daughter. Despite this, police refused to confirm that the body was that of Melanie until a post-mortem had been carried out. The remains were formally identified as being Melanie's through dental records on the 7th of October. She had incurred several severe blunt traumas to her head, resulting in a fractured skull, cheekbone and jaw. Melanie had also been tied up with blue rope. Melanie's parents launched a fresh appeal on the 8th of October for anyone with information to come forward, while Avon and Somerset CID DS Mike Britton stated that he was staying on after his retirement to continue working on the disappearance, codenamed Operation Denmark, having spent 13 years on the case. On the 29th of October 2009, police announced that 3 keys to a Ford vehicle, possibly a Transit, Fiesta or Escort, had been found near the body, and that they were working with Ford to try and identify the vehicle. Crime Watch also launched a fresh appeal for information, which resulted in more than 200 phone calls from the public. The reward for information leading to arrest was also increased to £20,000. In October 2019, police revealed that they had obtained a partial DNA profile from the rope wrapped around the bag containing Melanie's remains, and stated that they remained confident that Melanie's killer would be caught. Her parents reinstated a £50,000 reward for information, leading to an arrest and conviction. In 2003, police arrested 2 men in connection with Melanie's disappearance, but they were released without charge after police searched buildings and a field near Bath. In 2009, a 37-year-old man confessed his involvement in Melanie's murder to police in Greater Manchester, but was eliminated from the inquiry after undergoing psychiatric tests. In July 2010, a 38-year-old man from Bath was arrested on suspicion of Melanie's murder and subsequently released on bail. In August 2010, a 39-year-old man from Wiltshire was arrested by police on suspicion of murder after handing himself in at a police station in the Avon and Somerset area. The man was subsequently released on bail. In October 2013, police said that they had found a white Volkswagen Golf car connected to their inquiries and had received relevant information about the rope used to tie up Melanie's body. On the 25th of November 2013, it was reported that a 44-year-old man had been arrested at an address in Bath on suspicion of murder. The man was released on bail until the 19th of December, and the property at Roundhill Park, Whiteway, was searched. On the 28th of November 2014, it was reported that there was insufficient evidence to charge the suspect. On the 23rd of June in 2016, a 45-year-old man was arrested following retrieval of DNA from where Melanie's remains were discovered and released on bail a few days later. By October 2019, 11 arrests had been made during the police investigation, but no one was ever charged. Then it's saying about links to other cases. I mean, we could go on, and there is so many girls. They haven't ruled out links to the murder of Susie, and the case who disappeared, never been found, and the case of a serial sex attacker in Bath, nicknamed the Batman Racist, after he left a baseball cap bearing a Batman logo at the scene of one attack. The unknown assailant is known to have attempted to carjack a woman at knife point, leaving her wounded when she fought back and managed to escape in the same area of the city a few hours before Melanie was abducted. Again, it's his MO. It's also been suggested that there may have been a link between Melanie's murder and that of Levi Belfield, who is serving a life imprisonment with a whole life order for 3 murders. I have covered him. Didn't he? Millie Dowler. I think he murdered Millie Dowler, didn't he? A suggested link with convicted killer Christopher Halliwell, who is serving a life sentence with a whole life order for the murders of Sian O'Callaghan and Becky Godden Edwards, has been ruled out. It's just so sad. There are so many people that you could possibly put with this guy. It's absolutely vile. Okay, back to this vile individual. Prison life. John is a Category A offender in HMP Full Sutton in York. He still protests his innocence. He has studied for an Open University degree while in prison. His minimum tariff is 35 years, meaning he will not become eligible for parole until October 2022. And he will only be released if the parole board rules that he is no longer a serious danger to the public. John himself has previously suggested that he may only confess to the murder of Susie when his mother dies, to avoid causing her further grief. I think she might be well past that. A relative of John has also stated that they also believe he will confess when his mother dies. John and his mother remained close after his conviction, and she continued to visit him every week. I don't know if I could. In July 1989, he failed to persuade the High Court to stop the BBC broadcasting of a Crime Watch UK documentary on the investigation into the murder of Shirley Banks, a case he took to the High Court in January 2003, claiming that his right to, quote, free and unimpeded legal advice was being restricted, failed. In June 2009, he lodged another case at the High Court for alleged human rights breaches. He claimed that his ineligibility for a sexual offences treatment program due to his continued claim of innocence was illegal. Well, if you're claiming innocence, why would you need a sexual offences treatment program? I guess that's what they're saying. Or fess up and then we'll let you go. He appealed for his 35-year minimum tariff to be reduced, but the judge, Mr. Justice Coulson, ruled against this in June 2008 because his crimes involved, quote, a significant degree of planning and premeditation, and that there were no real mitigating factors at all. John came from a middle-class family. the son of an engineer, and attended public school until the age of 15. He was originally from Sutton Coldfield in the West Midlands. He was in the Merchant Navy for 3 months, aged 17, then began working as a car salesman in his father's company. When he was on day release from Wormwood Scrubs, he worked as a porter for a prop hire company. He claimed to have had 100 one-night stands. I think they're supposed to be consensual. And was said to be charming. He was married in May 1978 to June Vale and had a daughter, but he left them in 1980. What a despicable, disgusting human being is he. Like, seriously. Absolutely vile. I've just come across another article. The brother of rapist and murderer John Cannan has blamed him for their father's death and revealed how the family begged him to admit to the murder of Susie. He is now 66 and serving a life sentence for the murder of Shirley Banks, the attempted kidnapping of Julia Holman, as well as the rape of an unnamed woman in Reading in 1986. He could be released in 2022. I don't think he will. I don't think they're going to let him out, but he's the only suspect in the Susie Lamplu case, as we know. His brother, who asked not to be named and was voiced by an actor, has broken 3 decades of silence to speak to a Channel 5 for a documentary on the disappearance of Susie. He revealed their sister had pleaded with John to confess that he had killed her, whose disappearance remains one of the most high-profile unsolved cases in Britain's history. Oh, he looks really creepy. I'll put a picture up of what I've just seen. I'm quite sure John killed our father indirectly. Dad never recovered from the shock of the case and went to live in America. He became ill there and returned to Sutton Coldfield, where he died in 1985. The convicted murderer denied everything, adding that his sibling had shown no sign of regret or conscience. And then this is really sad. Susie's brother Richard still hopes to get justice for what happened to his sister. Again, I'll pop a picture up. John's sister appealed to him to admit that he killed Susie and reveal where he had hidden her body. She was wasting her breath. John will take all his secrets to the grave. He's a power freak. He doesn't have a mediocre of regret, conscience or compassion, he added. They're never going to get the answers. Someone else in the family said that when his mum dies, he will confess. But I think he's hoping now that in next year, in a matter of months, he's going to get released. I honestly don't see it. I don't. I mean, times have changed as well, because this was all like in the 80s, early 80s. Times have changed. I don't think he's getting out. Thank you so much for joining me. Another long one for you guys. I hope I have kept you company, and yeah, let me know what you think down below. I was having a conversation. This is going slightly off topic, but But I was having a conversation with first my mum and then my son, my oldest boy. And we were talking about the death penalty. And Mum said, I find it ironic that you're going to kill someone because they killed someone. I said, yeah, but come on. I mean, Fred West always comes to my mind because I grew up on the Fred West story. Again, with Ian Huntley. These people deserve it. I mean, Fred West is this guy deserves it as well. But Fred West is the most vile, and Rosemary too, you know. But that story, I did it for my Thriller Thursdays and it was bad. And having been a survivor of sexual abuse myself, and this is another point, I'm going to be talking a lot now. When they say, oh, this person was a victim of abuse and this person was physically attacked by their dad, I've lived it all. Hasn't made me a mass murderer and depraved person. I know we all cope differently. I know we all internalise it differently, but I don't buy that as a reason. Not being cuddled enough as a kid is not a reason to go around terrorising people. I'm going to leave it there. So let me know your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you've got a lot further on in your chosen project that you are working on, and I shall see you next week. Love, hugs and sparkles to you all. Stay safe out there. Bye.